I have the pleasure of sitting down with Christy Kruger, licensed realtor in both Alberta and British Columbia today. Thank you, Christy, for joining me on Encourage.
Awesome. Thanks.
There you go. See, that was simple.
So simple.
I always open up with the same question. What motivated you? What got you into being an entrepreneur, doing your own thing, and technically not, having a job, quote unquote?
Right. You know,
Where did it start?
I think the crazy coolest part of it is I don't think I really knew everything I was getting into.
Okay.
Which I've discovered in my life. That's a bit of a theme for me. And sometimes I think that I can be a little bit naive because I'm not 100% aware of all the issues or things that can come up. But I actually think sometimes that's my gift because I don't have the same fear. Like I just jump in with 2 feet. So did I fully know what being an entrepreneur meant when I started in real estate? I honestly don't think I did.
Okay.
I was ready for a career change. I had worked and provided supports to people with disabilities, which is what I went to school for initially, for 13 years.
Oh, wow.
And real estate just sort of seemed like a great fit. It was something I also didn't even think in my mind that there was any room for failure. Like I was just going to go do this, right? Which is part of the naive part. And so I think the most amazing part about my journey in real estate is this unfolding of entrepreneurship. And to be honest with you, I mean, so I met you very early on in the days, and you were the person who helped me with my website, created my first logo. And I'd be like, look, Levi, look what I created. And you'd be like, where's your name? Right? So like I seriously didn't have a clue about like that, all that marketing piece. Yes. So it was like, I think probably a steeper learning curve for me than maybe somebody else who had, some marketing skills or business skills behind them. And interestingly enough, I think with my journey in real estate, I would go back and do like working with people with disabilities. I would actually do that job differently. Not in a less compassionate way, but just my knowledge about, fighting for rights and lobbying and just through this journey, And so it's just so funny to me how life works.
So you almost like kind of stumbled on it?
Kind
It
of.
was just like, this is what I want.
But, it was terrifying.
But there must have been like, I guess, a reason at the end of the day. Like, was there something in the industry that you're like, I can help people here, or?
Well, so 2 parts to that. I would say to you, leadership and kind of taking charge of stuff has always, I think I just was born that way.
Yeah.
So to be in charge of my own business, I ran the residential program. I had been, like a team leader at a group home. So I had leadership roles already. The other piece of that is I remember sitting, like I pulled up across the street. Century 21 is where I started my career.
Yeah.
And I pulled up across the street because Jim Archer invited me to come to learn about air miles before I got licensed. And I had to muster up every ounce of courage to like get out of the vehicle and go be in a room with professionals. Like I had, like I didn't feel myself in that way. And man, oh man, I still think back to what trajectory my life would have taken if I hadn't had that courage. So for me, it was just starting, right? Like I just needed to start, and then I was a sponge and I just learned as much as I could.
I literally, it's funny that you said it that way because I literally yesterday just heard this on a podcast that I listened to, and the guy that he was interviewing, he kind of asked him something along the lines of like, he basically moved across the country. So even you were going from Alberta to BC.
Yeah.
This guy basically went from like New York to Los Angeles, and he said like, what made you take that step? Like, how are you not scared to death, essentially? And he's like, oh, I am. But he said, what I've always taught myself, even when I'm doing presentations, like sometimes he's like, I've been in this industry for 20 years. and I'll still walk into a room to do a presentation, and I am like anxious and nervous. And he's like, I just know that whatever feeling I have right this moment, once I'm done it, that feeling changes. It's just a small, it's this small little like jump that I just have to like overcome. Yeah. But the minute it's over, things are good. And it starts taking you down like a path of, I mean, obviously sometimes you can take a negative path, but he just kind of relayed like most of the time you're going down the right road. If you take that little, step, that fear step.
Well, and so you take that fear step and then you get comfortable and you forget about having to take that step, right? And so when I look back, because I've been incredibly involved through the community, organized real estate, but when I actually, Victoria, I am meeting people. So different than when I started in real estate in Lethbridge, I knew people, I had a database.
Right.
In Victoria, I don't know anybody.
Right.
So I need to make connections. That's my gift, is relationships, right? I really need to understand what your needs are so that I can help you in the best possible way. And so same thing, I pulled up at a chamber mixer, first time.
Don't know anybody. And I had to have that little, it wasn't quite as deep, but it was like, you got this. Like, it's scary. You're walking into a room full of professional strangers, but you got this. And it was amazing. Of course.
Right?
Yeah. It's just, like you said, it's not as scary as you've done it over the years, but it's still, you're meeting new people.
Still scary. You're putting yourself out there, right?
Well, it's no different than like, I mean, I simplify this, but it's like going on a date, right? That first date is always, while it can be exciting, it's nerve-wracking. It's like, okay. And the same thing applies in business mixers or any kind of luncheons or business meetings, presentations. You end up in those situations where you're just like eager but nervous, but tends usually to work out pretty good.
Exactly.
And you meet some great people.
Well, that's the thing, right? I know.
Well, and speaking of that, you're like part of a ton of groups.
Well,
or you have been part of a ton of groups.
I have, yeah.
What are some of those groups that, I mean, because you're on like a board in Alberta here, right?
Yep. So I would say that I kind of got my start in rehabilitation services.
Okay.
There was a called Campus Connections, and it was a program for people with disabilities to go to college. And instead of it being segregated like it had been for many years, it was more immersive. And so it was a way to have students, be in the culinary program with all the other students of the culinary program, but have supports where needed, or do exams in a different way.
Yeah.
And so that was my very first board experience. I sat on the board at the college for the Campus Connections project. And then I got involved with my kids' school council at École Agnes Davidson, and loved that. I basically lived at that school through my kids' entire elementary. And man, our children are so lucky in this city to be educated by, honestly,
people.
Amazing people. And then I got involved with Rotary. A girlfriend of mine, Sharon Sproul, and I had been approached by a couple of Rotarians, Bernie Carrier, who's no longer with us, will always have a piece of my heart, and Rita Baltazar. They wanted to get a younger group of professionals involved in the service industry, which Rotary. And so Sharon and I, young in our careers, young families, every person we talk to, you guys meet weekly? No way. So anyways, fast forward, Bernie and Rita ended up finding Jason Baranek and Joey Bosch at the time. It's Joey Going. And they kind of full force got Rotary going. And so Sharon and I jumped in, and I was the third president of the Rotary Club. So it was called the Lethbridge Rotary Club of Lethbridge Urban Spirits.
Yeah.
And this group of people, oh my heart, like this, there was not one single person there that wasn't about doing good and giving back locally, nationally, internationally. In fact, there's a group of us that still meets today. Like, they're the most amazing humans I've met. I'm so grateful for them. And so then that turned into, I was the district interact chair, which is the high school level of Rotary. I did that for a couple of years, and then I decided it was time to get involved with my career.
Yeah.
So I sat on a committee at LDAR, the Lethbridge and District Association of Realtors.
I do remember.
And then the next year I was on the board. And holy, was that an amazing journey. Like,
well, you're learning tons and everything too.
Oh, just being immersed, first of all, in understanding organized real estate. Because it's not really, it's sort of like this entity that makes sure that consumers are protected and we're able to do our job without a whole bunch of barriers that exist, but you don't necessarily need to understand it in order to effectively be a realtor.
Right.
And so that was a steep learning curve. And then my year coming into the chair position was incredibly challenged. And this is probably my best leadership story I will ever be able to share. I would say to you, I wear my heart on my sleeve.
I know that.
That is positive and negative. Mostly it's positive for me because I wouldn't really want to be any other way. And that's probably one of the reasons I didn't get into real estate sooner. I thought you had to like dog eat dog, you know, climb the corporate ladder. And I think I was old enough when I got into real estate to realize that I could do it my way. And so anyways, fast forward to this leadership opportunity. I was there to dig in and do the best job possible for the Lethbridge members, like hands down. And we had spent a couple of years doing, leading up to our strategic plan. We'd been doing studying and we'd done some surveys with the members. And we were implementing something that was a way to look at the financial budget that was not member necessary. So like if the numbers of the members decreased, we were able to protect the entity of the local board by ensuring that we would have consistent number of sales in any given year, right? So we were looking at this kind of, it exists, so it was a listing fee. And it exists across Canada in other local boards in Alberta. It's not
it's not exclusive to
here.
It
wasn't this brainchild idea. So we looked at this. Anyways, we hadn't implemented it. We hadn't engaged our membership yet, but it leaked because somebody at the board office leaked it. And we showed up at the AGM that year, and I would describe it to you like I was being shot at with a machine gun. Like the most amount of members that had ever showed up. It was a $10 listing fee. And it was kind of like a coup. And I don't know if that's a fair thing to say, but it was horrible.
They were coming with pickaxes and
they
essentially.
Totally were, totally. And I just remember like being so devastated after that. Look, I'm going to get emotional. All I wanted to do was do good, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't know if you want to start over on that. But anyways.
No, that's awesome.
Long story short.
That means it was passionate though.
Oh my gosh, it was
and
so
challenging.
Crazy. It was so crazy. So I was just stepping into the chair role, the president role at the time. And so the EO or the CEO and the chair always do this sort of learning on how they can best work together for the year. And I remember talking to colleagues across the country about this experience and other CEOs. And you have to understand, again, this is like sort of my first years of really understanding the professional world in a different way. And people kept saying to me, Christy, you need to let go of the outcome. And I was like, well, how do I let go of the outcome?
And that's kind of what you're fighting for in a way, right?
We've done so much good work to figure out that we're really saving. You know, like we want this to be here forever. And I kept hearing this message over and over. And then I was like, okay, I cannot be attached to the outcome. And then I found myself getting, you know, defensive about it. Well, if I'm not going to care about the outcome, then why do I care about the work? And then I was like saying to myself, well, if you don't care about the work, then why are you volunteering? Like this doesn't make sense.
It's a slippery slope all of a sudden, right?
And this was about a 2-week time frame. And I actually had an epiphany. I don't even know really how I came to it, but I had this epiphany where I was like, oh my gosh, leadership equals digging in and doing the work, disseminating the information, and letting the people choose. Like really not being attached to the outcome. And it was just like, So that experience, oh my gosh, am I so grateful for. It was awful, obviously. I still,
at the time,
right? It was awful, but I can tell you that I have taken that forward. That was, well, not, close to 9 years ago that happened. And I would say to you, I'm a better leader today because of that experience, because I actually understand my role. And it was never ego-filled, Levi, ever.
I know that.
But it actually changes the frame from it really not being ego-filled. You know what I mean?
I don't know if I relate in the same way specifically, but to me, I break it down just like emotional intelligence. A lot of people tend to be reactive, right? So even like not caring necessarily even about the outcome, but having the emotional intelligence to not let it be the way that you may end up conducting yourself in the process. And possibly either being, like you said, I don't know if this is the right way of saying it, but like overly caring, where people then kind of disregard you, if that's the right way of saying it. Like almost like, well, she doesn't even know what she's talking about because she's just so passionate that it's like, geez, like get over yourself.
Where are the facts, honey?
Right. And then on the flip side, like you said, like getting to the point where you don't care at all, so therefore you kind of end up in that like, well, then what's the point anyway? So I agree. It's like you're dead on with, it's about looking at those facts, disseminating that information, and just having the emotional intelligence to know that, like, whatever will be, and your job is just to, do the best you can to present that information, make your case, if you will, even if it is something you're passionate about. And this time around may not be the right time around, and maybe it will be, and you can keep fighting.
100%. And also learning that oftentimes that stuff is not about you.
No.
Right?
No.
But it's very hard when you're being the person that, And so then I went on to the chamber. I sat on the Lethbridge Chamber of Commerce board and went on to be the president. And that was a whole different challenge in learning. First of all, I had never been exposed to so much variety of business. So that was a really cool learning experience. And there were definitely challenges that I had to rise above. And the interesting thing is there are also challenges in life that we get to say, I'm actually not going to fight that battle. I'm just going to go be me and do my own thing. Right? So you asked about the current board. Yes. So after Eldar, this is my 7th and final year on the Alberta Real Estate Association board.
Wow.
I chaired 2020 and 2021. So tell me those weren't challenging years.
Unique for sure.
But we did some really amazing things. And again, business-wise, the growth that I've had on that board and just the knowledge, like if I just take, well, actually I could take my chamber experience and even my Rotary experience. I feel like all of that knowledge that I've attained, that I've been privileged to be part of, conversations, learnings, that just makes me a better realtor. It makes me understand the economy better, understand politics better, understand the housing market better, and just even, like having conversations with clients, really being able to understand what they need from me, but also what their perspective is. And then try to make sure that I can match that. It allows me to ask better, more deeper questions so that when you are ready to make that big purchase, I don't care if it's your 10th house or your first, we're getting it right. Right?
So like
it's
being
so
able to
important.
kind of qualify that person a lot better, not just qualifying in the sense of like, is this person going to buy, but qualifying
but like, what are
their
your
needs.
Exactly. What are your wants? What are your hopes? And then trying to fit that so that we can help facilitate those goals the best that we can, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to struggle with that early on, emotionally actually, because kind of touching on what you said about sometimes caring too much. I mean, I'm still like that to this day, but I always, when I got into business, I always wanted to help people. Like, like genuinely help people and genuinely try and find what would work for them. And obviously sometimes you get it wrong. At least in my space, like there's no perfect magic wand. So sometimes you get it wrong. Yeah. But own it, right? Own it.
We're human.
Yes. But what I used to really struggle with, and it actually, I have to thank my business partner for this, because it probably took him like, I don't know, I'd say almost 2 years to really ring it into my head. But because I was so passionate and because I cared, and I'm big on communication, I would always reach out to someone, and like I have this like mental rule, like if someone reaches out to me, it's not perfect, but the minute that I have the moment, so like the minute I've actually seen their email, or the minute that, if you know, just like we're taping this show, if someone called me right now, obviously I'm not calling them back this minute, but the minute that I grab my phone, it's like, you have 30 seconds to reply to this person, or I'm firing myself.
Right.
This is kind of like the mentality I have, just because of customer service. It's like the one thing I can control is making sure that they're talking to someone and that we're building that relationship of sorts. Right. So it's not just like, yeah, I'll get back to you in 2 weeks or whatever. But with that passion, I would get really frustrated because I would be that way. Right. But a lot of times it wasn't reciprocated, right? So I would be like, here's all the information, like I got this for you. And then radio silence for like 3 weeks. And I'd be like texting or emailing, and I would go to my business partner. I'm like, I don't understand. Like, what am I doing wrong? Like, I had this conversation. Like, we felt like we had like a common ground of what the expectations, needs, and wants were. And now all of a sudden, like, I'm reaching out and I don't even get like someone telling me like, pound sand, like leave me alone. Right. And it's stupid. It was stupid, but he's just like, Levi, like they're not you. And I was like, yeah, but what does that mean? Like they're business people. Like, don't they care about like how they're being seen by the people they're interacting with? He's like, that's not what it's about. And I'm like, well, what's it about? And he's like, you don't know what their day-to-day is. And I'm like, well, but they engage with me. Like, how hard is it to respond to an email? Like, I respond to them. How hard is it to send a text message? I respond to them. And he's like, yeah, but you don't know what you don't know. And that stupid little line is what ended up sticking with me for now forever. I don't know what I don't know.
It's pretty powerful, actually.
It's like the dumbest but most powerful line.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was like kind of bringing back that emotional intelligence and all that stuff that we've been talking about to say, yeah, like they might be having an issue at home. They might be having problems at work. They might be whatever it is. Sometimes it's not bad, but they might be busy traveling to a trade show. Like, just because they reached out to me and I responded quickly doesn't mean that they have that same sense of urgency.
Right.
At least at that moment in time. Yeah. And if they care, they'll reach out. And so I stopped getting kind of attached to that, like, well, I responded in 30 seconds. How come you're not responding back to me in 5 minutes? Like, dumb story.
But isn't it so cool? Just like the growth.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's, I don't know, like our children, you try to impart this knowledge, but you actually realize the reason that you have it is because of your journey. Mm-hmm. Right? Like when I think about making this massive move to Victoria, oh my gosh.
Right. Scary.
Like 10 years ago, I don't think I could have done it. Like truthfully. And it doesn't mean that it's easy now by any stretch of the imagination, but like it's just, you just have to be grateful of the journey that you've had because it just opens up opportunities for the path that exist in front of you, right?
Yep.
And you just wouldn't necessarily have that same door open if different things would have happened along the way. Or maybe you wouldn't react to them in the same way, right?
Yeah.
Both maybe, right?
100%.
So yeah, like and all those challenges and the learning moments and just life experience. I mean, raising kids alone has taught me a ton. being around other parents, you know, like you just, all you can do is learn and grow and try to be a better person. And I don't know, like you wake up and hopefully you're a little better than you were yesterday,
Yeah,
right?
that's true. But you said something interesting, and actually it's something I don't think we've been able to touch on too much on this series. Obviously, in your real estate career transition, you still had young kids.
I did.
What was it like for you, like that entrepreneurial and home life balance? Like, do you have it? Do you not have it? How do you make it work?
Oh, it's so interesting, Levi. I actually want to do a whole podcast series about that entire subject because I think as women, and I don't want to generalize that because I'm not sure that that's necessarily fair, but I think women we do it to ourselves.
Yeah.
And we also put a little bit more pressure on each other. I don't think the pressure is necessarily, you know, the expectation from your partner or your spouse, or even other like male friends. Yeah. But if you're the mom that didn't show up for like 2 games in a row to the hockey game, it's like, where were you?
Yeah, yeah.
As like nobody would say that to the dad that was working, right? And so, and not that I experienced that, but I would say to you,
yeah, that's fair.
In my journey, so my 2021 word for the year was balance.
Okay.
And I think it's because I realized I didn't have balance. I did it all. I was the mom at school. My career started when my youngest was in kindergarten.
Right.
No, that's not true. Peyton was in kindergarten, my youngest. So Aiden would have been in grade 2.
Okay.
And I didn't miss anything at school. I also didn't miss a soccer game, a hockey game, gymnastics. I grocery shopped. I did everything. And I think I just was like running, and I had amazing support. Like Trevor, my ex-husband, we're still friends to this day. He is such an amazing dad. Like, so, and so that was, you know, like food would be done or laundry. Like there was always that kind of support, but I always just put so much pressure on myself that I had to do it all.
Okay.
And so
that is, I think that's, again, not generalizing, but it's a fairly common trait.
Exactly. Yeah. And why is that? So why is that? Because I guarantee that same feeling doesn't occur for most dads, right? They're like, oh, I'm working. I can't attend that, like, period. Right?
You know what? I know this, well, this might sound counterintuitive, but it's also just some stuff I've been listening to lately, and even conversations I have with my wife. And because I try, you know, you do your best to understand your significant others too, right? In their minds and their situations. But the value that each person actually brings to the table, and having respect for that value, I don't know how else to say it, because like the importance of motherhood to me is like incredible. Like there's no replacing what a mother-child bond is. It's not, like, it doesn't happen. Yeah. You can be the best dad in the world. That bond with a mom is undeniable.
It's super true.
And so even like with the conversations I have with my wife, like it's like I do my best to let her know as often as possible, like what it means to me that she's doing work, you know, because she works with me, but she's doing work. But the fact that she's like committed to the kids, and you know, our home, and all these things, while I, in a sense, get a break, I guess, from that, but at the same time, like with a mentality like I have to provide, and so my role is to provide from a financial perspective, right? And you know, her role has a lot of other providing factors for our home and our kids that I wouldn't be able to do that I wouldn't be able to do unless we switched roles. And that doesn't mean you can't. You can have more of that male role in the house and female role out. But I don't know, something about that value I always think is also important, because sometimes we take advantage of it.
Well, it's interesting, you know, I'm doing a lot of work around DEIA on many different levels, like diversity, equity, inclusion, and anti-racism. And holy, is that
so
an
I couldn't be
interesting
speaking
topic.
about this subject to a better person.
Well, but so here's what I would say. That's a bias that you have, that you have to be the provider.
I wouldn't say I have to. I'm just saying.
But you feel very responsible for that.
No, that's right now my role.
Okay.
So it's currently my role.
Okay.
If that role was reversed, no problem.
Okay.
But I guess what I was trying to say is I've come to terms that balance is almost impossible. If you're choosing one thing or another, like
fair, like, but I would say to you, like my bias, so like my internal view of who I was supposed to be as a mom was all of the things that I believed made you an amazing mom. Plus I was trying to have a career.
Right.
So instead of finding balance between the two, I just tried to do all of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I don't think our biases are necessarily bad things. No.
We live in the life that we live.
Yeah.
It's just, I think maybe where I was coming from was, you know, I hear a lot, especially like I'm in social media and marketing, so you expose yourself to a ton of different things so you can learn and understand from them what's trending, what's not trending, whatever. Yeah. And like I say, the more and more I notice, it's a lot of content is pushing for like instant gratification type scenarios, which is difficult. And also then pushing for you to be a certain level of earner in life, both male or female, doesn't matter.
Very true.
And so my point, I think, that I was trying to get to was, like, if you're just chasing the money, it's going to be very difficult to take your energy and put it and give that same amount of energy into your like family balance, or being at every soccer game, and vice versa. If you're like putting all your energy into your family, that's not going to always be the same kind of energy you can put, like 100% is what I mean, like full tilt, let's go into your business.
So how do you have balance?
So my point
when
is
you're 100%?
You can't say, well, I want to, and I know it's crazy, but it's like, I want to be a billionaire. And it's like, well, you're not going to be a billionaire if you close shop at 4 o'clock because you want to go home and, make sure that you're there for supper and spend time with your family and do all those things. You're going to give something up. Yeah. There's a sacrifice at the end of the day, and vice versa. If you choose to spend that little extra time with your family, you're going to sacrifice a little bit of time in what you're putting into your career. So it's not to say that you can't get there. It just might take a little longer. And your place, both in business and in family life, it'll have a place. It'll find a place, but it might not be the pinnacle. And that's what I've found lately is like being pushed a lot is like, you have to be this pinnacle. And like what you just said about doing it all, you have to be this pinnacle. And it's like, well, no, like you don't have to strive to be a millionaire. You can strive to make a good living and still have that family life. You can strive to have that good work life. But yeah, I just mean the pinnacleness is it's tough to achieve unless you're putting all of your effort into it.
So true. So true.
That's what I meant by respect.
And so maybe balance looks like if it equals 100%.
Right.
Where do you divvy that up to total that, right?
And that's what I'm saying, like especially in a relationship, when you're dividing up that percentage value for each other, where does each person bring the necessary value to provide the balance? Right. So I guess what I was trying to say earlier was I'm fortunate that my wife is able to provide this percentage value in this area that allows me to focus a little bit extra on this area, so that we balance each other out. Right. Maybe that was the right way of
that's cool.
bringing it about.
And then the question is, does that equal 200%? And you guys are figuring out where, like that's actually a super cool way of thinking about it, right? Because you're right. I mean, so first of all, you have your, you know, your close partner relationships, and then you have all these, you know, friends that are like family and maybe family and, you know, peripheral, like that you're constantly learning, right? Like your comment about, you know, you don't know what you don't know. Like that's a really good friend. That's a business partner. That probably changed the trajectory of how you view a lot of things, right?
Tons.
And so it's like there's this always opportunity to learn and grow.
Yep.
And yeah, if it's out there, you just, and I don't mean do better because you're not good enough today. I just mean, you know, like it's this journey of like, oh my gosh, I never thought of it that way. And so it's really, for me, it's really about being curious and open, right? And you're not wrong. Like communication, respect, like it doesn't matter what relationship we're talking about.
That applies to business just as much.
It totally does.
Just as much, because especially when you start having employees or your partners or whatever, like communication is critical.
Yeah.
It's critical.
Yeah.
I still remember one time, I think I've told this story in a past episode, so I won't indulge on it too much, but I do. Like the one business partner that also, he actually taught me quite a number of things, to be honest. You know, you don't know what you don't know. Activity was his other one, like, because, you know, sometimes I'd be down on myself for like not making progress and not moving at the speed that I thought I should be moving at. And he would always just say, like, look, like, just keep having the activity. Just the minute you stop the activity is the minute that your business will suffer. And sure enough, like, that means making sure you get that next appointment, making sure you make that next call, that next email, that next text, that just keep the activity flowing, and eventually things will fall into place. But the particular one was, I was just having trouble understanding some stuff with numbers, and the reality was I just wasn't learning, right? I was like, like that's not what I need to learn. Like my job's to do this.
Yeah.
And I remember his calm, cool, and collectiveness about it. But he invited me to his house. Do you want a drink? He said, and I can't remember, but I think I asked him for rum and Coke. And we sat down at his table, and he put the 2 drinks down, and he pulled out this financial sheet, and he slammed his hand so hard on that table, and like just like went from like, let's have a drink, to what the, you know, is going on? And I was like, whoa, like what just happened? It was almost like a mother's scolding, like where it was like, yeah, you know, 1 second she was rubbing your back, and 2 seconds later she was hammering on your butt. And that was another lesson for me, like that, the communication side, right? At that moment, he particularly thought that I was trying to do something in not a bad way, but just in a way that almost felt like I was hiding something.
Right.
And the minute I explained it, he was like, oh, right. So that went away, but it was also like, oh, but just so you know, like the next time we have this conversation, that can't be the excuse.
Right.
And so I spent like 2 months just
learning financials.
But knowing the numbers.
Yeah.
To the point where he would, like, because he would call me every day. What's going on with this?
Like your conversion rates and everything.
Anything, right?
Gotcha.
Like it would be from what's your profit sitting at today, to what were your gross sales, to what's your office expenses, to, and like initially I was like, why do you keep asking me like every day? Like it's pretty like, I don't know if that's the right word, but it was kind of insulting, I guess, for lack of a better way of saying it. I'm like, you know, our office rent, or you know this, like, why do you keep asking me this all the time? But really all he was doing was like getting my finger on the pulse,
right,
to the point where he could ask me any day a question, and I might not know it obviously to the penny, right?
Yeah.
But it would be like, yeah, like this and this. And he'd be like, okay. And so he continued on with this for a few months. And then it helped me learn it to the point where all of a sudden the questions just stopped. Like they just stopped. I didn't notice it, but they just stopped. And all of a sudden, I think about 4 or 5 months went by, and I called him. I'm like, you haven't actually asked me about any of this stuff. And he's like, I know you know it now. And I was like, you son of a...
And thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, greatest, like...
That's so cool.
So if I was to share a tip with anybody listening, just entrepreneurially speaking, that was probably one of the best lessons, at least for that time frame of business, was like, you're experiencing a little bit of growth, you're doing all these different things, you're focused on selling and growing, but at the same time, growth can be expensive. And so as easy as it was for me to say, I'm just going to hire someone, I was like, but what does that mean?
Right.
I'm just going to buy this equipment. Okay, fine, but what does that mean? And so, yeah, really understanding your numbers like daily,
right?
At least for sure early on, will help you plan and understand your business like
100%. And that's just that's just great business skills.
Yeah.
But as an entrepreneur, you don't necessarily know those skills.
No.
That's why it's so important to surround yourself by people who are smarter than you. And really just be curious and open to learning and ask questions, right? Like, don't be scared to get a mentor.
Yes.
Right? Like, I would love to be able to connect with you, once a month or once every couple of months and just ask you questions about business. Like, would you be willing to do that for me?
And so many people are.
People love to share their knowledge, right? Like, they just love. Even in Victoria, I find there's so many new realtors out there.
Yep.
I have people coming to me all the time, like from different brokerages. Like, one guy's like, hey, can I touch base with you about my goals for next year? I just want your input. And we had a conversation, and he's like, oh, I never thought of that. Oh, I never thought of that. And I'm like, yeah, you go. And then another lady that I've met, she's pretty new in the business, like a year, and she's like, I'm not really sure about this, and what do you think about that? And I'm like, well, we'll sit down. I'll tell you what I know. I definitely don't know it all, but I'm happy to help.
No, and none of us know it all, but it's that one thing that you can say, and it's like, that will help me, or at least that's something I'm interested in.
Yeah. And here's another piece. Like, so your conversation about, knowing your numbers and all that. So I had an assistant early on in my real estate career, and oh my gosh, so grateful. So I've made this move to Victoria.
Yeah.
So I still have my business here, and I work with an incredible team.
Yeah.
Southern Alberta Homes team, and they're just Manson, JL, Ali, Bobby, and Davey, amazing humans. Like my people.
Yes.
Like, when my people call me and I know that they're going to be taken care of, I'm like, you might like them better than me. Like, they're so good, right? So you know that you're passing on. So here I am in Victoria with a lot more time on my hands. So I can do this.
Yeah.
I can add names to a database as I, intentionally make connections at different conferences or with my realtor partners that already exist, chamber events. I'm really great at, here's the piece. So I'm really great at connecting. Like, so the chamber mixer, I've literally had coffee with 5 people, and I think I met 6 of them.
Nice.
At like real deep conversations, and we've gone for coffee and just like really connected. My gift is not in adding their contact to my database. And so this is the balance of like, okay, so I know in order for that to happen, no matter how much time I have on my hand, it is not my gift.
It's not your thing.
It is not my gift. And so it's like, it's exactly that. It's like, okay, so where's the money going to come from? Because I know that I need help with that aspect. No matter what I tell myself for the last couple of months, it's not happening, right? So it's also, I think,
but the time that you gain from that is time that you can put into what you're good at.
Yes. And that's, so like, to add on to that piece of like your gift around, understanding your numbers and knowing what your business is, I would also add on to that, you have to know when it's time to have somebody help you. Because one of the conversations I was having with this newer realtor was around social media. She's like, well, I know I can do it. And I'm like, yeah, but you could also have somebody else do that piece and focus on what you really love instead of putting all this. I think sometimes we don't really realize how much mental energy we're giving to something that we really don't want to do or don't want to learn.
It's like DIYing even at home, right? It's like, I'm going to reno my entire basement, and like the minute you knock the walls down, you're like,
because I'm saving money.
and I understand that, obviously, especially like, well, any business, we all have budgets, right? Yeah. We all have budgets, so it's not like it's just like an endless flow of money, but you do have budgets, and so it can be scary to say like, oh, like, do I hire that bookkeeper, or do I hire that social media person, or do I hire someone that's going to do my data entry? Yeah. But if you really start to focus on some numbers, like if you take time to understand it a little bit more, I feel, maybe I'm biased, I feel that it opens your eyes to the opportunity. Someone might see it differently.
I like that. Yeah, no, but I like that.
But like I'll give a really real simple example, and I think it's even in relation to what you just said about going to like a networking event, right?
Right.
So let's say you go to that networking event, and hold on, let me preface that. I want to preface it by saying that it's not always about making money. It's not about sales, but the story that I'm saying is related to sales. Yeah. But so where's your time better spent in terms of growing your business? So in that sense, it does revolve around revenue. Yeah. No matter how you want to paint it, no matter how nice of a human being you are, at the end of the day, the function of a business is to generate revenue.
Well, and it's also about the ability to understand how deeply you need to know.
Yes.
So you might need to know all the aspects, which are part of your numbers, but you don't necessarily need to, learn how to upload a TikTok video to perfection. Do you know what I mean?
No, yeah. My point with the numbers was just in the sense of knowing it in this way. So you go to that networking event and you spend an hour there, and you met 6 people. And let's just say that you separately then met with 3 of those people and you spent another hour with each of them. The total time that you spent was 4 hours, right? Yeah. Now again, I'm just saying but if one of those people became a customer or provided you a referral or whatever number that might be, let's just say it's $1,000 that somehow came from those interactions one way or another, then realistically, like, you made $250 an hour.
Right.
That's what I mean by understanding the number is like sometimes we're good at what we're good at, but sometimes your time is better served doing this other little slice because that's where you can actually grow your business. So going back to your social media, or for me it was like bookkeeping, right? Like I hate bookkeeping. I'm not that guy. Like I don't like sitting there doing the data entry. I won't do it. I'm still the guy that when even with my wife running all of the administrative tasks, it's like every week it's like, Levi, can you bring in your receipts? And there I am in my car grabbing all the receipts from the glove box in my wallet and putting it on her desk. Like I would not find any happiness in sorting through that and being like, oh, this was that day and this was that day and let's input that. So the time that she saves me helps me focus on other things. The time that employee X saves me doing something that I might not be the best at, but they're way better at it, enhances my brand and gives me time to do that other thing. And so, that's kind of why I say knowing the numbers can help you
100%.
Actually determine like where
to put your efforts. That's a really good full circle. That's so good because you're 100% accurate on that.
Yeah, and that's why I think small entrepreneurs don't focus on, like, they're like, I'm really good at, they might be a woodworker, they might be opening up a clothing store, I don't know, right? They might be a good mechanic, and so because they're good, they're always like, I'm going to do this work, and it's like, Yeah, but because you're good, you can actually set the bar of who you want to do that work.
Right.
Like what your expectation is of that work. And if you bring on that extra mechanic, or the bookkeeper or that social media person, now you can still go and connect.
Yeah.
And if you go connect with those six more people, there's another $1,000, right? That eventually kind of comes to fruition from it. Do that every day.
So true.
A lot of money on the table.
Yeah. It's so true.
And again, it's not just about the money. That's not what I mean. But business is about revenue at the same time. And it's about helping people. But
well, 100%. But also you have to figure out, regardless of the money, we go to work. We do this job every single day. You have to love what you do.
Oh, totally.
And so if you have the ability to figure out what brings you joy within the aspect of what needs to be accomplished in a day for it to be a good, successful day, and you have the ability to say, this is the part, like bookkeeping, this is not my joy, then it's okay to offload that because it needs to be there in order for the whole piece to be successful.
Right.
But focus on your joy.
Yes.
That's why as entrepreneurs, we work so hard, right? We are the people that get up and go to work every day, and we don't know if we're getting paid. We are the people that are providing jobs to other humans.
Yes.
We are the people who are, in a lot of cases, doing leadership stuff, right?
Yep.
And so you might start out doing leadership stuff because you want to give back to your community that supports you. Maybe you want to learn something. Maybe you want to, I don't know, maybe you want to help make a change, that's important to your business. There are many different reasons. But I think that if we can just continue to, find that joy in every single thing that we do, then isn't life so much better?
Yes, and you actually said something that I also just want to touch quickly on, which is don't be afraid that that passion can evolve, because it might.
100%.
In fact, it probably will.
You might be the woodworker who loves to create and all of a sudden realize you actually really love running the business.
Right.
And hiring people and having different marketing opportunities for the creativity that's 100%.
100%.
And
I've noticed that you myself, like, that's what I went to school for. That's what I trained for. And as time has evolved, like, I've actually become more passionate about data than I did when I started in terms of like design and that kind of stuff. Yeah. And so now I'm just like I'm a data guy. I love data and I love to understand numbers
But that's like leveling up to your new passion,
right?
And it doesn't matter how long.
But you'll evolve.
100%.
You'll evolve. So not to be afraid of that, like evolution. Like you don't have to be stuck here. Like
and you might have to tool up.
Oh yeah.
So in order for you to be that data person, maybe had you have not had that great teacher, right? Like your business partner, maybe you would have had to go take a few courses because you needed to
or
level
even
up.
invest in tools. Like I actually remember the conversation. It actually was around a WIP report, and I kept remembering, like, at the time, my accountant Laura Lee Burton, she'd be like, like you got to know your numbers. You got to follow this WIP report. And I'm like, oh, what's a WIP report? And she'd tell me, and I'm okay. How do you implement that? It's like, I don't have software. I don't have this. So it took a while. Found the right software, which now is like literally my lifeblood. Like again, not to continue too much longer, but having the same passion for numbers made me realize, like, yes, investing in this software is not cheap. But kind of like where we started the conversation, where does it lead you to? Yeah. And so as I've been able even to train my staff through that system, especially the managerial roles, you should be able to know something within minutes. Yeah. Not hours, not days. And it doesn't mean you'll have the 100% answer in that time frame, but if you can't go onto our, CRM management system and not look at some little snapshot and have an instant, at least, like, got to do this. then what's the purpose?
Right.
And so that also changed the way that I look at my business. Like I have technically, I think it's 8 widgets, or at least that's what I think they're called on the software, but 8 widgets that I have that are constantly on. And one is, how much money am I owed as a business?
Yeah.
How much am I currently sitting at for the month? What are the total number of quotes that we have out in the world? What is the total value of those quotes? Because I also have an understanding of our closing ratio, so it gives me an understanding of roughly what we can kind of sell. How many projects are open? And then also along that, it shows me which ones are on track and which ones are showing a potential delay.
Cool.
And in the last, now I'm drawing a blank on these last 2 here. Well, in any case, I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on the last 2, but they're literally on my screen all the time. The point being is I can kind of, it's like a health check.
Yeah.
So every day I can log in and do a health check.
Yeah.
And then every day I can print a report for whichever department. And literally, like, it takes 60 seconds. I print that. Well, you don't have to print it, I guess, but I print the report. I've got it in my hands, and I can that moment say, okay, got to have a conversation with this person and this person. Got to address this, and this. And this person is doing awesome. Go give them a high five.
Right.
Like,
so it keeps you focused and accountable, right?
And repetition. That was
so
the
routine.
Thing. Yeah, because I feel like sometimes in business we tend to have good ideas and poor follow through.
Yeah.
Not necessarily on a sales front or ideation front, but like when it comes to running a business, I hear it a lot with entrepreneurs. Like, well, I told my staff X, and I'm like, okay, but did you tell your staff that 52 times? Did you put something in place that allowed them to visualize that so they didn't forget? Did they, are you doing this? Like, it's like children to me.
Yeah.
Not literally, but like a child requires structure.
Yeah.
Or they need that structure and somewhat repetition to learn and grow.
Yeah.
And so in a business, the only way you can learn and grow is to provide that same level of repetition, and also to form it in a way that, I use Kevin O'Leary, even though I know lots of people don't like him, but I also always think, what happens if I got hit by a bus tomorrow? Like, is the business over? Right. And in my mind, I'm like, no, like I want somebody to just be able to pick up the candle and continue. And so those systems now serve as a place where, well, I'm not saying it would be instantly easy. The tools are at least there to pass the torch and keep the flame lit and start the new journey, right?
Totally.
If that makes sense.
No, it totally does. One other point that I would make in terms of the entrepreneurship, and you touched on this, but it's like surround yourself with the right people. So it's not even necessarily the people that are going to be in your day-to-day business, like your staff or, your mentors in terms of like helping that grow, but it's your accountant, your lawyer, your bookkeeper, and also don't be scared to pivot, but surround yourself by people who you can really trust to lean on as you're learning those pieces that you don't necessarily know, right?
100%.
So you might be this amazing creator, but you don't have a clue about this aspect. No. So it's really important to have, that person in place that is going to guide you, and you can trust them along the way to help guide you in the right way, or at least ask you the right questions, right? That will help you go, oh, I never really thought of that.
100%.
Because it is such a journey, right?
There's so many variables. Like and that's why I say it's easy to sit here and talk about it from my perspective, but hopefully mine and your answers today or conversation today, like you said, it's only if that one thing, they take away that one little, like, I didn't think of that.
The golden nugget.
Well, yeah, right? Because everyone operates differently. We're all unique human beings to boot, so we all have different goals for our companies, different visions for our companies, And while they do need to survive under revenue, it doesn't mean that they don't have a culture, that they don't have a pulse, that they don't have, right, all the other things based off of, the person that's operating them. Someone might be very, what's the right word, giving back, right? Philanthropists, right? Someone might really be in a stage of their career to be giving back a lot. And someone might be in their stage of their career that they actually need to, for lack of a better word, take, right? Because you can't give back till you're able to be in a place where you can give back.
Exactly.
So we're all there. We all start somewhere.
Well, and that's the point, isn't it? Just start.
Just
start, be curious, be open, surround yourself with the right people, and just know that you're always going to be growing and learning.
I got one more question for you, actually, because this one's intriguing to me.
Okay.
And I think just your experience in different leadership roles, it might actually even help me. It's more along the terms of making other people curious. So for myself, I am constantly curious, right? Like I have to know the answer to things, or the best answer I can find, at least. It's been today's internet age. But yeah, like I'm always curious, right? How do I learn this better? How do you pass that on to others that may not have, at least let's call it the same entrepreneurial mindset of curiosity, but let's say that they're like more your worker bees. Like, do you have a suggestion on how you can help?
Yes, and
those
I have
worker
a book.
bees?
I have a book for you that I'll share with you.
Yay.
I just actually most recently read it. It's called Change Your Questions, Change Your Life.
Okay.
And I can't remember the author, but it's so good. So I think the thing is, regardless of who it is coming to you, your employees, your children, friends asking advice about whatever's happening in their life, I think the key to being curious with people is you are actually empowering them.
Right.
And so when people start getting, like when you ask questions that they maybe haven't thought of themselves. So if it's a child, for example, or an employee, they might be coming to you to solve a problem for them.
Yes.
And if you actually don't choose to solve the problem for them, because if we're being really honest with ourselves, I don't necessarily know what the right answer is for you.
No,
right?
Of course.
So if I ask the question and suddenly that empowers them, the next time they might not come back to you because they've asked the question themselves, which then just naturally starts that process of people realizing, oh, well, I can ask this question. Or if one of their colleagues or their friends come to them with a problem or an issue, that they're not having to be the problem solver or the solution-oriented person. They can actually just be really curious. You don't actually have to have the answer. And in fact, that's, as a leader, the most empowering thing that it's freeing for you as the leader, for
that's
starters.
part of letting go.
But it's also super empowering for the people around you because
100%.
You actually don't have the answer necessarily, right?
And sometimes even if you do, you want them to discover it in their own way. And they might make a mistake.
Exactly. Oh, growth opportunity.
I know, but a lot of people look at it as like, well, that can't happen, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of entrepreneurs letting go. Like, in a way, we're perfectionists, in a way.
Yeah.
And so I think lots of entrepreneurs struggle with that, at least the initial part of letting go, where it's like, but what if this person messes it up? And it's like, it could happen.
Yep. But what's the worst that could happen?
But you did it at some point, right?
And I think the key, so you asked a question, what could I possibly learn? It's like, I think regardless of which situation it is, if you make it safe for that person to make the wrong decision, then they're not going to be as scared to make the decision on their own the next time.
Right.
Right? It's when the consequences seem so dire or somebody reacts in a way that, potentially has, visceral reactions to somebody that they are actually scared to make that mistake again. But if we can teach people that making a mistake is actually a growth opportunity, then it's way easier to, like, I mean, think about it. Like, what kind of gifts could you give if people just started not being scared of making a mistake and figuring stuff out on their own? And I don't know, like, I think about my kids, and I think, like, they're already smarter than I ever was at their age, right? And I know that my parents would say the same thing.
Exactly.
But it's like, it's because of our growth that we're able to pass on to them, and hopefully they're learning how to ask those questions or dig in sooner than maybe we did, right? Figure that all out.
Yep.
So,
and letting them be curious.
Yeah.
What do what should I do with my life? What do you want to do with your life?
Exactly.
What passion do you have? Do you want to do this or do you want to do that? And letting them explore. Actually, it is true. I'll end on my side with one thing, this particular word, just because it stands out in our conversation regarding my daughter, specifically my oldest. Because
your oldest?
Yeah, my oldest, because she's sitting there going like, I have all these ideas on what I'd like to do for a career and go to college for, right?
Yeah.
Or university. And she's like, I'm so confused. And I said, no, you're not confused. She goes, no, like, I'm confused, and so I'm kind of down on myself. Like, why am I so confused? Like, she's 19 years old, right? And she was like, I'm confused. Like, I shouldn't be confused. I said, no, you're not confused. Took a second, and I said, you're not confused, you're exploring. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, confused would mean you don't know what to do, and you're literally stuck. I said, you're not stuck. You're young, and you're exploring your options. You're just entertaining the possibilities. That doesn't mean you're confused. You're just kind of sitting there going like, well, what about this? And like, what about this? And like, what about, so you're curious, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. And you might pick a mistake. And by mistake, I mean, you might just pick something that you're not 100% passionate, or maybe you're going to pick a career choice that's just about money, but you don't like, once you start in it, you don't like the job. So it's never too late to go back to school if you want to do that, or it's never too late to change direction. Like, just don't be afraid. And I just said, and no matter what, I believe in you. And so similar to employees,
there's the
right?
Safety net.
Right? Like, it's like, go explore, like, have fun, enjoy the process, and try and avoid like idiotic mistakes. Like, by idiotic meaning like, well, simply like, don't drink and drive, don't go get a credit card and max it out.
Yeah.
But outside of that, it's like, you might not pass an exam. Okay, what'd you learn from it? Take it again. Yeah. Right? You might not, you might not like the career you chose. Great. Change. And not saying that you didn't like your previous career, but like, it was an end of an era, right?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
So any final thoughts, tips, tricks you'd like to pass on to anybody that's potentially listening?
Specifically around entrepreneurship?
Anything.
I think it's just be brave. And that's not always easy. Be willing to pivot, and don't, how would I frame this? If you make a decision, much like your daughter, I give this advice to my kids all the time. I think pride maybe? Is it our ego? Where it's like, ooh, I can't not do that. I've gone so far down the tunnel, right? Mm-hmm. But I think in business, in life, if you're not happy, change it. Just change it. And you can move back to your hometown. You can move to a different town. It doesn't matter what that looks like. You can start a new career. You can go back to a career you had 40 years ago. It doesn't matter. Choose happy. And the rest of the path it'll just fall in front of you exactly how it's supposed to. It really will.
So, and sometimes, even though this sounds negative, sometimes taking a step backwards will get you 2 steps forward.
Yeah.
So not being afraid of downing your dial, or dialing, what's the right, I don't remember the saying now, but dialing it down a little bit to be able to dial it up again.
Yep, totally.
I love it. This was a great conversation.
Yay.
Thanks for being a part of it today. I
Thank you.
really appreciate it. And I know you're a busy lady and traveling across Western Canada. So
I know, right?
So thank you so much for actually taking the time for that.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Levi. So good.
Awesome. Thanks, Christy.